Hello and welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Mangia. Today is a very, very interesting episode. We're going to discuss Justice Mukta Gupta. She had a very glorious 14-year tenure as a judge of the Delhi High Court. As you all know, she was appointed in 2009 as an additional judge, made permanent in 2014, and she served in total for 14 years. The tenure has been, in a sense, much to talk about in terms of a lot of judgments delivered, her conduct in the court, and she has built a fan base, I must say, of her own. That's why we discuss, but we also discuss because one glorious chapter of her life ends and another one begins. It's going to be arbitration and litigation. What will be more, we'll soon get to know in the next 6 to 8 months, 12 months, what she chooses, whether we'll see her in the corridors of the Supreme Court of India, or would she be sitting more in arbitrations? Of course, I have got panelists today who will share, who know her personally, and who will be able to tell much more on her tenure, and reflect on the past and talk about the future. May I welcome Ma'am Geeta Luthra. As you know, she is one of India's leading criminal lawyers. She is a senior advocate at the Supreme Court of India and the Delhi High Court. She joins us from Cambridge. She's in the United Kingdom, but she's agreed to join us and spare time. Thank you so much, ma'am. And looking forward to some interesting insights. I have with me senior advocate Percival Villimoria, a very, very well known in the circles of both litigation and arbitration. Good to see you, Mr. Villimoria, and looking forward to some good insights today. I have with me senior advocate Pramod Kumar Dubey, who's well known for his expertise in criminal law. He practices at the Delhi High Court and the Supreme Court of India. Good to see you, Mr. Dubey, and looking forward to some good insights from you on, since you've also appeared in a court many times, if some anecdotes would be beneficial for the viewers. I have with me Meghna Mishra. She's partner with Taranjawala Company, and which is one of India's leading litigation law firms at the Supreme Court of India and the Delhi High Court. She is a partner there, and she would have handled, if not thousands, many thousands cases, in this span of 14 years at the Delhi High Court. And she would be able to give us insights on Ma'am Justice Mukta Gupta. Looking forward to some interesting insights from you as well. At the outset, may I request Ma'am Geeta Luthra to open this discussion with her comments on Justice Mukta Gupta.
So, Mukta obviously joined the bar slightly later than me, and she was working with her father. Then I believe that there was a very wise advisor who told her that while working with your father, nothing grows well or blooms in that sense if you are under the main tree, so the branches have to cut off. And so she cut off and joined, I think, Avinash Lawat for a while. And, the rest, of course, is history. She tried for ASGA and was successful in the higher judiciary exam, but turned it down. In fact, she very pleasantly recalls that she had to turn it down very fast because some of her colleagues who are now were on the bench with her, perhaps Rajneesh Bhatnagar and some others, told her that if you're not going to join, then at least give a no so that we are accepted soon rather than delaying it. So she chose then to go to the Lieutenant Governor and call it a day. And it was then that she was offered the position of an additional public prosecutor. Before that, she was counsel for AIIMS, and I was doing some very interesting cases for AIIMS for their association. The doctors had done a strike, and I was representing the doctors. Of course, it's a very hard fight when you are fighting for the private parties against the state in that sense, in the AIIMS case. And she gave us a tough fight, I must say. And that was, her personam became after some time synonymous with All India Institute of Medical Sciences, doing service matters, doing cases with people against AIMS for various consumer, other courts, whatever cases in the Delhi High Court. Service matters. And then was the metamorphosis, which happened after the ASG position, and the metamorphosis happened into additional public prosecutor. And from there, for a person who had never done criminal law, I think in her life, she went on to become one of the best public prosecutors and then the standing counsel. So that I think is enough of an opening statement. One line I want to say, and this I didn't know because being senior, sometimes you don't get to know these things. But apparently she was nicknamed Lady Singham by members of the bar. And that's interesting.
Nice one. Thanks. That's why I like to speak to you, ma'am, because you'll always give us an anecdote or two, which, in a sense, lightens up the discussion. And so many youngsters, so many co-lawyers would like to know what you say. I'll go to Senior Advocate Percival Buliboria for his opening comment on Justice Mukta Gupta's tenure.
Right. So I think that was a very interesting insight from Geeta. So one of the issue, of course, Justice Gupta has been, on the criminal roster for a long time, where, she has so many decisions. But there are two arbitration decisions which really stand out. So in one, which is GMR Energy versus Doosan Power, right? So GMR Energy versus Doosan Power, she held the principle that two Indian parties can always agree to a foreign seated arbitration. It's not about Indian law or foreign law. All right, it's foreign seated. So two Indian parties having a dispute can always say that we will have a foreign seated arbitration. This was in fact confirmed later in another case by the Supreme Court sometime in 2021. And then there's, of course, when you challenge an arbitration award, there is the timeline is very stringent because arbitration is a very special law. And it's predicated by the speed and the economy of the argument. So therefore, if you are challenging, and you can always challenge only on very limited grounds, but the limitation period to be able to challenge is very stringently enforced. So in one matter, she has held that the period taken for any bona fide litigation should be excluded from that timeline. So bona fide litigation, in situations where sometimes you go to the wrong court, the wrong jurisdiction. These are fairly complex matters in arbitration because there are 2-3 provisions that deal with that issue. So if you've gone to the wrong court and you're litigating there, then that timeline should be excluded. So these are two, I would say, landmark decisions, that she has passed. On the criminal roster, she has always been a very, very diligent judge, very hardworking. I think everyone who's appeared before her, is aware that she, over the last few years, had little difficulty with the health of her father. But she was always very, very, very diligent in her matters. She always endeavored to finish her roster. And you could always see that fairness. Sometimes, there is a feeling in the bar that somebody who's been a special prosecutor will always kind of somewhat lean towards the prosecution agencies. That's not true. And certainly with Justice Mukta Gupta, you could see there was so much empathy. So you could always go to her and say that, look, charge sheet is filed, right? There are so many witnesses. You can't surely incarcerate the poor guy until all the witnesses are examined. So he should be released on bail. And I think that is something that always worked with her. Of course, in one matter that I did before her, it didn't work, where, it was a case where somebody was arrested on the Noida bridge. And he was UP gangster, a very renowned UP gangster. And he was arrested. And I said that, look, he was arrested based on statements given by some other accused against him, which cannot be relied upon right now. So she seemed to be going with the flow on that point. But then later she said, but look at his track record. So there I could say that, but, the FIR has been quashed by the Allahabad High Court, but she didn't buy that. So it was always very, very, I wish I could have appeared more in her court than I actually did ultimately. But it was always such a pleasure to be before her.
Thank you. Thank you for that opening comment. Now we go to Senior Advocate Pramod Kumar Dubey for his opening comment on Justice Mukta Gupta and her tenure.
Thank you, Tarun. Tarun, when I joined the practice and I joined the chamber of my senior Mr. Siddharth Luthra, I was completely clueless about the criminal side practice. So when I joined, Justice Mukta Gupta was one of the additional public prosecutors. And there were so many public prosecutors who were senior to Justice Mukta Gupta. And what I found in Justice Mukta Gupta, she was holding a list of the cases, the cause list, and standing at one place and watching the board, and she's doing the matter, reading the file. And she was so thorough. She was so thorough in her brief. And there was no loose talk at all in the corridor. She was not critical to anyone. She was confined to her brief. And subsequently, I started appearing with Mr. K.K. Luthra, the father of Mr. Siddharth Luthra and Ms. Geeta Luthra. So she had a lot of respect for Mr. Senior Luthra. But when we was preparing the matter, so Mr. K.K. Luthra used to say, Mukta is coming this matter, so don't take her lightly. She would come with all preparation and she will put all the law and she's thorough in the facts also. So she was so meticulous and particular. And subsequently, we also got the opportunity to the parliament case, that's Priyadarshini Mattu case. So she was thorough. And the hospitality, I can't narrate you because the personal things. She was so generous in the hospitality. If you are going to meet her in the chamber or any other place, you'll get a lot of respect from Justice Mukta Gupta. She will not make the comment on any lawyers. And one thing I would like to share, when I shifted my practice to the High Court, it is Justice Mukta Gupta, she encouraged me to start my practice in High Court. I got one brief from Mr. Siddharth Luthra, my senior, to argue the regular matter, that's the final argument, the K. Lal versus CBI, and that was the trap matter. So ultimately she dismissed the appeal, but she laid down the law. If prosecuting agency has not sought opinion of the forensic science expert, or the forensic science expert has not given the opinion, ruling out the tampering of the evidence, that evidence is inadmissible evidence. And she's gained a lot of juries everywhere, like the juvenile justice, her finding, her endeavor. She was also a member of the committee. 138 matter, she gave the ruling that if you have not challenged the jurisdiction at the original court, you cannot take the jurisdictional aspect in your appellates or the revision and the 482. Like 313, if one of the co-accused has made the statement implicating the other co-accused, she said no, it cannot be read against the other co-accused persons. You cannot take the defense first time. And circumstantial evidence, recently she has acquitted one of my clients. It was a well-proved case. And totally based on the circumstantial evidence. And the way she narrated the circumstantial evidence, the appreciated evidence. And though she has the background of being the prosecutor, but it is not like that. She was the pro-prosecution mind. Whenever she sits in the court, she sits with the open mind and gives the hearing to everyone. And you cannot create any nuisance in the court. I will just share one example. The matter was going on in the court. And one of the party was related with the member bar. So she was hearing the matter and she was going to pass the order. So one of the executive member of Delhi High Court said, ma'am, your ladyship, he's the member of the bar. So she said, what? If he's member of the bar, so he will be given the special treatment? Simply she is the complainant. And what about the accused? So these people not work in my court. Here you have to establish your case. So there was absolute clarity. And the kind of the judgment she has passed, this judgment would be remembered for quite a long time. I think the judgment would be overruled. So this kind of the jurisprudence we have got. And whenever there is a meeting like in the judge's lounge and after the swearing in or any formal meeting in the High Court, she always used to say, "Mere criminal side wale kahan ho bhai, tum aa jao hamare criminal side wale." And she was actually representing the criminal side of the Delhi High Court bar. So it's a big loss, but ultimately one have to remit the office. But she would always be remembered in the criminal jurisprudence, criminal practice of the Delhi High Court. And one thing very important, Tarun, in her last roster, she has decided as many as 300 regular appeal. And she has cleared all the appeal till 2019. There's a few pendency now. There are few pendency. And there was no adjournment. You come argue. If you are not able to argue, the amicus curiae will be appointed and the appeal would be heard. But no adjournment because it's her motto was it's a question of the personal liberty of the individual. I don't want to keep the person inside the bill on the ground of the delay. So this kind of the things she has developed and she has no grievances at all against anyone. Even we are from the criminal bar of the Delhi High Court. You won't find any person who has grievances against Justice Mukta Gupta.
Point very well taken, and thank you for that detailed opening comment that you gave on Justice Mukta Gupta. I'll go to Ma'am Meghna Mishra, partner from Karanjawala and Company. You spent a lifetime in the Delhi High Court, and you would be able to give us insights on what was she in the High Court, what was like appearing before her, and other comments on her.
Sure. Just to add that there is one facet of ma'am which is related to her criminal side practice, of which I'm not that familiar, and I'm not venturing into that. Both Geeta ma'am and Pramod sir have already spoken about that. But just to take off from where Geeta ma'am left, she was called Lady Singham for a reason, because she was so gutsy. That, of course, during her practice, she broke the glass ceiling and the gender barriers, and she was the standing counsel, first woman standing counsel on the criminal side. But even on the bench, she would always smile. She was very cordial, but extremely firm. And God help you if you are not prepared. She expected everyone, and I think she took that from her own days of practice, that she was always prepared and fully ready with a brief. She expected that from lawyers as well. But one thing that I do recollect is that when she came on to, I think this was in 2012 or 13, when she came on to the civil side, there was a slight apprehension in mind, how will she handle? And she was brilliant. There was no hesitation that, this is a person who does not have that comfort. And I didn't know, perhaps it was her days as a Ames counsel that she was so familiar with the CPC already. We argued at length. I recollect that one of the matter. And when we started, we had started by saying cause of action and the CPC, etc. And she was quick. She said, of course, I know. Get to the point. And, and so that is how she was. She was always ready. And she never discouraged anyone from making submissions. She was always very fair. So I think that is what one took home, that, all right, you may not get your relief. The judge may disagree with you, but you would be heard, and you would be heard fairly. And I think across all judgments, I find there is a lot of empathy and kindness. So it is not that something would be just discarded there was always an underlying, and as Pramod sir said, she was always very accessible to the bar, to juniors, to help, and very, very hospitable. If you ever met her outside, very cordial. And I think those are the things that, apart from the judgments, a judge is always remembered for. And whatever holds decides to do in the future, if she decides to be in the corridors of Supreme Court, I'm sure the bar welcomes her very, very warmly. And because she's brilliant, so I'm sure whatever she will touch, she'll do really well. And just to add one very quickly, one of her contributions, which is very remarkable, is on the patent side of the litigation. And in fact, I think it was in 2020, she was the first woman judge who appeared in the top 50 IP persons. And I think she was featured next to Ruth Ginsburg of USA. I mean, that was the type of acknowledgement that she has already received. So we should not refer to ma'am as just somebody who contributed to the criminal side.
Point well taken, and thanks for that insight that you gave into Justice Mukta Gupta and her life and her career. I'll go to Ma'am Geeta Luthra. How was your experience appearing before Justice Mukta Gupta? You've known her before she became a judge, and then you appeared before her. How was your experience?
So she was, in her own way, a formidable judge. We must respect that. I mean, forget empathy, forget all that. But she was formidable because she knew her law, and she had, over a period of practice, because you have practiced so extensively, you have views. Those views sometimes need to be dislodged by a lawyer. So the experience indeed was interesting. Sometimes it was to our disadvantage. I remember one matter where, in fact, Shivani went for a Passover, saying that Ms. Luthra is just coming. She said, no Passover, but if you argue, Passover will be granted. But no Passover as far as she's concerned. She's a senior, she should have been here. So, of course, I wasn't there. And then Shivani argued, and she won that it was a rape appeal, and she succeeded. And the credit to Justice Gupta is that she was looking at it as, even in its own way, a learning experience for a younger member of the bar. I've seen her with the judges. Because now, over the period of time, we've had a lot of women judges coming into the judiciary, into the Delhi High Court. And I see her guidance is there. Her hand as a senior is there, helping them, guiding them. These small things make a lot of difference. So great balance that she has managed to keep. The fact is, as perhaps her daughter did brilliantly when she cleared her some exam. And she, like, I would get no credit if Shivani does well, because I'm so busy in work. Her daughter said, it is my work rather than hers, because apparently during that critical period, even though she had wanted to have a light burden, she had been burdened with this heavy case. She also did the Simi case, and therefore the extension of the ban was extended by 5 years. Pinky was the counsel for the state at that time, and she discharged herself in whatever hat she wore simply well. And I, for one, forget the criminal cases. I remember one matter of intellectual property that I was arguing before her. And it was I thought, a very neat point. And she was appreciative. It was our bad luck that just the roster changed just the last day of the final arguments by the other side. But I could just appreciate the fact that she made it her job. And I remember this of Justice Ruma Pal also, that somebody commented, one of our senior most counsels, about Justice Ruma Pal not knowing that particular field in which that senior counsel, one of our greatest stalwarts, was an expert. And Justice Ruma Pal actually pipped him in the sense, I think she worked 30 days reading that whole law. And this is what I am sure Justice Mukta Gupta did when she took on intellectual property, because she didn't have a very, very long stint, but she had a very exceptional stint even as that. So criminal lawyer, see, from moving to tax, which she did with her father, to aims and civil disputes, which she did on her own, to government work. So for her, it has been a super going, and every woman who achieves this does it at a cost. She does it at some cost. Maybe only the cost is her sleep, but it is a huge cost. You see, you have to take out some time from your personal existence to do so exceptionally, because women lawyers will have to work harder, whether as criminal lawyers and you can see that criminal law field has not been so open-armed, welcoming to women lawyers. And she's done well. Others have done well. You know, I have been doing criminal law. Rebecca's done well. There are so a lot of, but it takes for her to carve that niche. When she must have gone, people would have been dismissive, that look, this person, she doesn't even know criminal law. She's coming from civil law, and it'll be a cakewalk as a prosecutor. But it was no cakewalk, and she did a good job, and that's why she became standing counsel criminal. And she did some very good work in rehabilitation of children. No one can actually say that, you know, while she was on the juvenile board, and I think it was also started at a time when she was a lawyer and Justice Usha Mehra had told her, do something. So very many things, your work as a lawyer, your work as a prosecutor, your work as criminal standing counsel, and to keep the most important, for me, the most important quality of a judge is also, while you know you may be good, is humility. And that humility makes you hear people and listen to people, see a viewpoint, maybe not change your mind, but at least give a chance to your mind to change. I think those are great qualities. And I feel Justice Gupta had all of those. So it's great credit to her.
Thanks for that wonderful, in a sense, comment on her tenure and her life. We're almost out of time, so we'll take a round of good wishes from the rest of the panelists. But I think a very quick comment from Senior Advocate Percival Bilimoria.
Yeah, so Tarun, this is very enlightening. I can certainly tell you that Shivani is a very bright and upcoming lawyer, you know, to the limited extent that I've interacted with her. So one thing about Justice Mukta Gupta is that, you know, when she was a puisne judge, she sat on the division bench with two excellent judges. One is Justice Nanda Jog and Justice Vikramjit Sen. And in fact, you know, when you talk about IP, you have the Hoffman-LaRoche decision, which was Justice Nandajog and Justice Mukta Gupta, which incidentally was argued by Justice Pratibha Singh. That's also quite a landmark decision that is being quoted nowadays.
Okay, thanks for that comment. Very quick comment from senior advocate Pramod Kumar Dubey.
Tarun, I would like to share my experience. I was arguing a regular matter that was pertaining to the Prevention of Corruption Act, and the person has already been expired. So I was being instructed by the family to move the application to grant of bail on the medical ground. So I moved the application and she issued the notice for a month. So I became aggressive. I insisted, let the notice be issued for tomorrow and call the report from the jail authority because the person will die. What about his personal liberty? We are talking about the personal liberty. There would be the cardiac arrest, the cardiac problem, all the things. She said to Mr. Dubey, nothing is going to happen. I'm already issued the notice. We'll see. But I was very insistent. She said, okay, I'm calling the report day after tomorrow. So she called the report day after tomorrow. Tarun, you're surprised the report was normal. Then she said, Mr. What about the medical condition of your client, Mr. Dubey? So I had no answers. She said, I already sensed the gentleman, this application is not the genuine application. Your client has misled you. So she was so experienced. And one thing also I would like to share. She has the bonding with the family and the care she's taking, the respect for the brother, the niece, the nephew, the entire family. Even I would, we are running out of time, but I'll just cite an example. There was a swearing in the High Court. The new judge, after the swearing in, we came down to the judge's lawn. The new judge was very nervous. She immediately came and she started giving the encouragement, the confidence. And then she said, you enjoy. And she started looking after their family members, their parents. आप यहाँ आओ, बैठो, यहाँ चाय पियो, photography कराओ, ये कराओ. So this kind of the personality she has. And she look after the entire things, even in the bar, in the bench. And she's the person who started, gave the idea to have the lunch with the one kitchen in the Delhi High Court for the judges. So she always fought for, stood by, for the cause of the judicial criminal system. And she was fantastic, even in the arbitration, the civil matter, the medical, every aspect you'll find. And on point, all the point, Justice Mukta Gupta has given the different particular jurisprudence.
Point well taken. One final comment from Meghna Mishra, partner, Karanjawala and Company, before we close.
And one more facet to Justice Gupta's contribution, and what Geeta ma'am mentioned about the rehabilitation of about 350 girls during her practice days, and 25 of them got married because of ma'am's personal initiatives. But even when she was on the bench, she really did try and give back to society. She was part of the Juvenile Justice Committee, where again they tried to rehabilitate the children, and so those contributions, I'm sure she'll continue to give back in whatever form and manner that she can. And she was also extremely involved with the Delhi High Court creche facility that was opened. And I believe that she spent hours to ensure that that was pleasing and a wonderful facility available for all the children. So such was and is ma'am's nature. So we look forward to interacting more with her in the new avatar.
I would like to thank each one. I think Ma'am Geeta Luthra wants, but very quickly, almost.
So I just wanted to say she's made number of brilliant judgments. We've talked a little bit more, maybe personally, about her quality as a judge. The future Amazon, that emergency arbitrator judgment is also hers, which went up to Supreme Court. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Ma'am Geeta Luthra, Senior Advocate Percival Bilimoria, Senior Advocate Pramod Dubey, Meghna Mishra, partner Karanjawala and Company. You made time came and joined us for such an important episode. Farewells come once in a lifetime, but we also gave her a nice farewell. But we discussed the next career awaits her. Do we see in the Supreme Court of India? Will we see her as an arbitrator? Time will tell. But that's it for now. Thank you so much, each one of you, for making time. Thank you so very much, viewers.
Thank you, Tarun, and all the panelists.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.